Hello, my name is Thangam and I. I'm a Labour MP for Bristol West and I'm Shadow Leader of the House of Commons. And
my name is Jessica Morden MP. I'm the MP for Newport East and I'm the Shadow Deputy Leader of the House of Commons.
So we are the Shadow Leader of the House team, and that means we're very focused on Parliament. And this week is UK Parliament Week and we asked you to send in your questions, which you have done.
So we shall pick the first question, which I'll ask Thangam, randomly chosen from a Tata Steel, steel workers in Newport East. Thangam, if you could work with a historical Labour figure who is no longer with us, who would it be?
Oh, well, I'd quite like to meet all of the women who got elected in 1924, because it was just quite a small band and goodness knows what it must have been like for them. I'd quite like to pick Barbara Castle's brains and work out like how she did what she did in terms of equal pay.
Popular choice.
What about you?
Well, I was thinking it's pre-Labour history, but I think coming from Newport, I would have liked to have seen if I had any Chartist ancestors
good answer.
because of the Chartist rising. But also in modern times, I really miss the wiseness and the wonderfulness of Roger Morgan, and I really enjoyed working with him when I was Welsh General Secretary after devolution, and I would have liked to do that. Ooh, how do you stay motivated to do your job? Thangam is very motivated.
I stay motivated to do my job because I have great colleagues like Jess, and because every day when I wake up, if I feel cross, at least I get to come about the state of the world. I get to come to work in a place where you stand a chance of being able to fix it. If not today, then maybe tomorrow and maybe soon. So at least you get the hope that you'll be able to change the world. And it's really interesting. And you meet loads of really interesting people.
I stay motivated because on the weekends when you're back in the constituency and you're meeting people who raise things with you, you really get driven to want to give them a voice and do that in here. I think that's really important. And I also stay motivated because I've got a wonderful team. And MP's teams aren't huge.
Yes.
There's normally about 4 or 5 people working with you, but they both have excellent teams and they keep you going.
They do. What's next, Jess?
Would you do I'm a Celebrity?
Never! I've not even watched it. Would you?
No, I'm too low down the food chain.
That's not true, but B, would you? You wouldn't anyway, would
No,
you?
absolutely not.
Just the very thought of it. And also, serious point, we actually are supposed to be here as MPs. We're supposed to be doing our jobs and we're supposed to be representing people, and no.
I am, however, enjoying watching it with my family.
Are you?
Okay. Next one, Thangam.
Yeah? How does the Shadow Leader of the House office contribute to parliamentary scrutiny? Well,
I think you can have the first stab at
Yeah,
that
okay.
because you're the boss.
Okay, so once a week, the Leader of the House, who is on the government side, and she, at the moment, we call Penny Morden, she is government's representative in Parliament, but she's also Parliament's representative in government. So she's supposed to bat for Parliament when she's in the cabinet room, but she's also supposed to come to the House, present what business is going to happen, and by implication also what business isn't going to happen. So the very first and most immediate job I do is every Thursday when she presents the business, I have to stand up and say, but where's this and where's this and what about this and why have you forgotten this and why are you not doing more of this? And I also get to do a sort of general state of affairs speech around that, about sort of why is the government not doing what they should be doing or whatever I think and we've discussed as a team. How else?
I think all our wonderful teams go through the auto paper and look out for what's coming up and what to raise and where something's not quite right. And then you also go to lots of the House committees, don't you, and represent the shadow team on committees.
Because there's quite a lot of them.
Run the, restoration renewal project or, to do with standards and things like that.
But then there's also, like, your team have been doing this thing of monitoring which government departments are good at answering their questions and which ones are not, because all government departments are supposed to answer our questions which we ask on your behalf, on constituents' behalf. So Dan and others in your team have been doing this great job of sort of poking away at that. And we also put in parliamentary questions. People in both of our teams have been helping us draft some really good questions to hold the Shadow Leader of the House accountable for how she timetables Parliament.
Thangam, do you agree that Legally Blonde is a feminist classic?
I most certainly do, Jess. And the reason I do is because the women in the film are funny, sassy, they have their own independent lives. The story isn't all about whether or not they've got a boyfriend, isn't all about their relationship with men. And actually, the women talk to each other, they talk about all sorts of things. It's about women having a great time as well as having careers. And I think in so many ways it's a feminist film, and it's one of my favourites.
And I agree, it's one of my favourites too, and I've seen the musical.
Have you?
And I asked my 16-year-old daughter what she thought, and she said it passes the test of kind of good women characters who don't just talk about the love interest, but and also a kind of underestimated woman who works hard and strives to win over.
And I kind of love the fact that everyone underestimates her because she's interested in clothes, and they think you can't be interested in clothes and smart and sassy, and you can, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That's a great question. Is it my turn to pick?
Yes, your turn to pick.
Not looking. Whom do you admire?
Ooh. In here, in the House of Parliament, I think we've got loads of like really good people on the front bench who I admire, but there's often, you look around the chamber perhaps when there's some of the backbench debates going on, and you spot people who are real experts in their kind of field. So for instance, as like Labour colleagues, someone like Diana Johnson, who has really battled for the contaminated blood families who were involved in that scandal and achieved great things. She would be somebody that I would massively admire. And I would also actually admire the families, the constituents who come to me about that, because that's really important. And then also people perhaps who haven't got the bigger jobs, but people like Chi Onuara, who would make a fantastic science minister, who's like an MP who knows a huge amount about her brief and contributes a lot.
I know this might be me being biased, but I really admire the Whip's office because I was a Whip, and you're still a Whip. But also I know it's a lot of work behind the scenes that nobody ever sees. And with Whip's officers, if everything's working smoothly, it was almost certainly because the Whip's officers were doing their jobs. If everything goes wrong, the Whips will often get the blame when it usually isn't their fault. But most of what Whips do is just about making sure the house runs smoothly and getting bills to work and all those sorts of things, which people think, I think, that just happens by magic. Who else do I admire? People who are doing all of those other jobs that make Parliament work. Yeah. And I think they don't always get appreciated. They could, like loads of them could earn way more money in the private sector, but they come here because they believe in democracy. So people who work in digital, people who work in the catering, the cleaners, loads of them, I think they could work in lots of different places, but they like coming to work here.
And I think like in life, people who've kind of inspired you along the way, there were two women, a former woman General Secretary called Margaret McDonough and Anita Gale, who was the former Welsh General Secretary, who kind of helped me along as a woman, so I admire them.
Yes.
Wow. Should it be a criminal offence to lie through ignorance or malice in the House of Commons? Ignorance is difficult because if you get it wrong, you can come in, we've got that system where you can come in and correct the record and apologise. Malice?
I think that would be quite tricky to prove. I don't think you should lie in Parliament. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
But we all agree you shouldn't lie in Parliament. Everyone in this conversation agrees with that. And also we do have rules. You are not supposed to mislead the House, and if you do so unintentionally, you are supposed to come and correct the record as soon as possible and apologise. And lots of MPs are, in the time that I've been here, I haven't heard lots of MPs have to do that, but I have heard MPs do it. Those that don't, I think it's a problem, but we also have a system for that. So at the moment, for instance, there is an inquiry taking place into whether or not the former Prime Minister intentionally misled the House, which is, I suppose, a different way of saying lying. And I think it's right that we have high standards for each other. I like the fact that we have to assume of each other that we will tell the truth and we'll be honest. That's what we refer to each other as honourable members. But the other side of that bargain is you have to come and correct the record if you make a mistake or if you do something that misleads. But I don't know about criminal offence.
And why, I'm asking you this out of interest, are we not allowed to say liar in the chamber?
It's part of that honour. And I know that that doesn't always sit well with people, and I totally get why. But if you call someone a liar, you're assuming that they are not willing to come and correct the record when they've misled the House, and we are supposed to try and uphold standards of behaviour, and we do that partly by showing that we expect the best standards of behaviour and that we're respectful of each other, and calling someone a liar is really serious. It undermines everything else that they might say, and I just think MPs need to take responsibility to come and correct the record.
I once got told off for saying hypocrite.
Did you?
You can't say that either.
Can you not?
There's a number of words you can't
Gosh,
say.
yes.
One last one. So I'm going to ranking chatter steal for the hat. What's your favourite thing about working in Parliament? That's easy. Mine is, I'm going to leap in and say they're really fantastic people. So this morning on the as part of the whip's duties, I'm on the bench for Prime Minister's Question Time, and I have a great time. I think the doorkeepers in this place are wonderful, as are the security staff, as are all the people who work in catering, the clerks, whatever. There's some really great people, but also the building's great. Sometimes, particularly this time of year, in Christmas, you can walk through Westminster Hall and be one of the few people in there, and it's wonderful. Yes. But my last thing would be, it's about having a voice. It's about being able to have get up and articulate for a constituent something that really matters to them, and try and battle to right wrongs, particularly when you're in opposition. And that's got to be the best thing of all.
I think it has, and I think that's why, like when you said, "Oh, that's easy," I think there's loads of things about it that I like, but that is easily the best, because that's what we're for. That was what the Chartists wanted, wasn't it? So that we could be other people's voice, and sometimes that can be really challenging. I don't know if you've ever had to say something and you think, well, that's representing my constituent, I'm not sure if I agree, but you still know you want to represent your constituent, and you have to really think about it, and you have to think it through, and you have to challenge yourself, and you can't just go, oh well, they said it so I'll say it, without thinking it through. So I love that bit the best, but I have to say I also love the building, even though it's got huge problems. It's crumbling and there's loads of things wrong with it, but it's history, and I like that it's living history. And I know some people say, why don't you move out and turn this into a museum? I like the fact that it's a living place of work, and it's also part of history, and it isn't a museum, it's the place where people come.
And it's available for everybody to visit. If you contact your MP, you can get tickets for Question Time, and you can come on a tour, which are free, aren't they?
Yeah, but you can also, if you want,
we could show you around, not everyone.
You can also just rock up, you can rock up as well.
And you can rock up.
And people don't always realise that Parliament is your Parliament. It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the public. And just today I had some constituents who came in for PMQs, but actually when they discovered that they could stay and watch a committee, that's what they've decided to do. So they're going to stick around, and they're going to go and have some lunch in the cafe, which you can do. And I like the fact that this is a democracy where you can walk in and scrutinise your MP, even when we're doing really boring things on a really turgid regulatory committee. Those things really matter, and people can come and watch, and they do. And so I think that's really magic as well, because when you talk to people in other countries, when you talk to MPs or people who don't live in a democracy, and it's a really precious thing that they get to come and watch what we do, as well as voters.
Prime Minister's Question Time is quite rare, really, isn't it? That opportunity to really put the questions every week to the person in charge is an amazing thing.
I think it's also, I really like the fact we have urgent questions and ministerial statements most days, because it means that when something really big happens that day, you don't have to wait for the next time the government has put in a slot for you to debate that topic, which might not happen for weeks. Something urgent happens, you get to debate it today. It's not a formal debate, but you do at least get to question the minister, and I think that's a really good part of democracy as well.
So, you start, you're the boss.
Thank you. So not true. Thank you for all your questions. We've had a really interesting time answering them, and I hope it shows that we think Parliament is a wonderful place for people to visit. Do come and visit us sometime. Thank you for your questions.
And welcome back from me.